Welcome to Beyond the Box.
Our guests are insiders that are now out and on our side, dropping nuclear intel and breaking it down just for you.
And now it's time to introduce our hosts, Brenda Lankridge and Suzanne Hart. Join us and subscribe for weekly shows. Beyond the Box begins now. Let's jump in.
Hey y'all, welcome back. Boy, what a weekend. So tonight we have got Dennise Carroll with us, and he's got a very interesting conversation that we're going to talk about. Woohoo! And we have got Tommy and Jake with us tonight. So before we get started, I am going to go ahead and start us off with a prayer. We're going to talk about some dark stuff. So we will begin and end in one tonight. So, Father, I ask that you keep everybody protected that's going through all of the hard times in their lives right now. We thank you for what you have done, and we do know that you will fix the stuff that needs to be fixed. And I ask that you also help Susie. She's been overwhelmed lately with all of this stuff. Let Roger have a speedy recovery. Take some pressure off of her. And Father, I also ask that you will put a hedge of protection around us here on this show, people that are watching, and keep us all safe from all of these dark and evil forces that surround us on an every day in our lives. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Hello, Jason, Denise, Julie, Norma, Midwest. Hi. Nice to see y'all. So let me go ahead and bring peoples out. We've got Dr. Gonzo. Hello, Tommy. Oh. Uh-oh. I can't hear you, Tommy. No, what did you do? Okay, come back. And I've got Jake, and I don't know where Jake went. He disappeared. Oh my gosh, technical difficulties, people. Jake, I can't hear or see you. Go out and come back in. Well, Dennis, I think it's you and me.
It happens. It happens.
You know,
it happens to me a lot anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, well, they'll be back.
They'll pop back and surprise us.
Yeah, they usually do. Come in and out, It's okay. So what do you have for us tonight, Dennis?
Well, I thought we would talk a little bit about vampires tonight. I've done some vampire hunting in my day, and it is a fascinating subject. And there are different types of vampires. We need to talk about that, and we will talk a little bit about vampire cults. And I'm going to tell about some of my interaction with some of this stuff. So I think we'll have an interesting conversation tonight.
Well, sounds good to me. Mm-hmm. Sounds really good to me. And look, we found Jake.
Did you?
I did. I found you,
all
Jake.
All right.
So would you like to, in case we have anybody out there that doesn't really know who you are, which I find that hard to believe, but would you like to tell people a little bit about yourself before we get started on our vampire quest?
Well, I've been around forever, actually. Almost seems like it. I'm as old as the hills, anyway, put it that way. I have been investigating all of these things. That includes UFOlogy, cryptozoology, paranormal, spiritual research, all the different fields of the paranormal and supernatural for well over half a century now. So it never gets old to me. And when I started out years ago, I said I wanted the whole pie, not just a slice of it. And I've gotten deep into demonology in many aspects. UFOlogy, I've had some experience, some UFO experiences. Here's the thing, and I was telling somebody this the other day, and I've had a lot of people say, "Boy, you sure have had a lot of things happen to you. Nothing ever happens to me. Why has so much happened to you?" I said, "Well, maybe I got lucky. I don't know, but I think the more you look into the paranormal and the supernatural, the more it will look back at you. The more you look for things, the more likelihood you have of finding it. That's just common sense. That's the way that goes, and that includes the paranormal. I have seen full-bodied apparitions. I met a vampire once. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. I have had a lot of different experiences over the years. I have seen demons face to face. I have seen what the power of prayer will do against these guys, and how you can get rid of them and keep them off your case. But they are out for no good and to cause as much trouble as possible in our world. They are definitely a real factor. And a lot of here's the really crazy stuff about this, Brenda and Jake and then my. The crazy thing about all this is that it's connected in some kind of bizarre, weird way. It's all connected, and the more you look at it, the more you realize that it's a strange, interesting fabric of this universe that we have all around us, the seen and the unseen. I wrote a book several years ago called "The Road Unseen," and there is so much of this. I think we're only seeing maybe 10% of this of the known universe. Okay, that's about all that we truly see of what's going on around us. But here is what I have studied, and being a doctor of metaphysics myself over the years, I have studied the fact that how the unseen actually affects the seen things of our universe, how they interact off of each other. And that is a fascinating study. But the thousands and thousands of eyewitness accounts and reports I've gone through over the years, the many thousands of witnesses that I have interviewed, and the thousands of house blessings and cleansings I've done have led me into this where I'm at now, to the point where I've opened my own paranormal consulting service. So because people are calling me and asking me all these questions, and I want to impart this knowledge to them because I'm not going to be here forever, okay? And
Right.
I'm rushing to write books and impart this knowledge before it's my time to kick off, and I become part of a paranormal, okay? But that's what I'm trying to do, and that's sort of just my goal, to try to help humanity in that respect, to try to understand these unseen forces that affect us on a daily basis completely in our lives.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. We have a lot of them, Dennis.
Yeah, over the years I've accumulated a few. I have had a lot of instances where I have been called into certain cases. I'm going to relate one to you about a lady that was haunted by what was possibly a vampire. I actually met a supposed vampire one day out in a cemetery. It's been a few years back, and it was a cemetery in Charleston, South Carolina. Well, Charleston is a very old city, and it goes back to the 16th century. I did an investigation there, by the way, in the oldest liquor store in America. Okay, that's it. Used to be, it's a liquor store now, but it used to be back in the 16th century. a pub that was frequented by Blackbeard, the pirate. That was one of his hangouts.
Oh, wow.
And in the basement of this thing, and the ghosts of pirates are supposedly seen in this building. But in the basement of this building, I sat all night long on the part of the 16th century seawall of Charleston, actually. And so it's very, very historical. I love historical areas. They're to me, they're the best investigations of all. Of course, I don't mind helping people with their problems, and I've done a lot of that over the years. I want to be there to help people with their problems, answer their questions, and all that. But it's another kind of aspect when you do historical areas. You pick up on a lot of stuff that you normally wouldn't in a residential type thing. But that was a great investigation. We had cold spots. We had a lot of things all night long that took place. And here's one more thing. I was in this basement, and in front of me were like two tunnels that ran under the city street. And all night long, looking into those tunnels, I could see lights. I don't know if this was spiritual energy of some sort moving around or whatever, but it was there. It was not a trick of my eyesight because I brought other people in and they saw it. But here's the weird thing. No matter how much I tried and I used every piece of equipment, I could not record these lights. No matter what I did. And I think these things sometimes know this. I think they kind of keep us from photographing sometimes things that we see. I know this happens especially with Bigfoot, Dogman, and other cryptids. UFOs, the same thing with that. I think some of these things are preventing us from taking really good photographs or video on these things. But anyway, all night long, I tried to get the picture of this. But here's a clincher. While I was sitting down there, I had a very unusual experience. I heard a rustling sound. A rustling sound. And it felt like somebody walking up to me and putting their hand very lightly on my cheek. Just like you would do that, And
yeah.
So I said, I told the owner about this the next day. I said, that was a weird experience. And they had the funniest look on his face. He said, well, I didn't tell you guys this. But back in the 1860s, right after the Civil War, there was somebody that killed several prostitutes in Charleston. And it was during the winter, and they could not dig the graves. So they stored their bodies in that basement you sat in tonight.
Oh.
And that was it was like, a light bulb moment. Hey, this was like a woman that did that on my face, and here's the other thing, the rustling. That's the way their dresses would do. They would rustle, because they wore these long, big dresses, That was what I was probably hearing. Now, I think it may have been more or less like residual type haunting. But it's very interesting that I had that interaction. The lights may have been residual type things, but that brush on the cheek, that was interaction, no matter which way you look at it. But that was fascinating. And Charleston's kind of had its own Jack the Ripper, and he killed about 5 or 6 prostitutes, and that's where their bodies were kept all winter until spring, and they could bury them. Right down where I was sitting in that basement. So that was a freaky incident in that. But anyway, Charleston's a very old city, and it has a very distinct history. Edgar Allan Poe, as a matter of fact, spent the army there at Fort Moultrie. He spent a tour there. And that is what they say he actually wrote that very famous poem, Annabelle Lee. He supposedly fell in love with a girl. I'll tell you something about Edgar Allan Poe. He was a real ladies' man, okay? And he was falling in love all the time. He was enamored with women, okay? And that's sort of a little bit of a thing I used to share with him back in my younger days. But anyway, He was very easily to be attracted to women, and it would not surprise me if he didn't get in fall for Southern Belle down there and write that poem. But anyway, he supposedly visited this graveyard that I was in that day, and here's the strange incident that happened. I had actually was in that graveyard. I wasn't there investigating or doing anything. I was actually looking for the grave of one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. And this guy was buried somewhere in the cemetery. And I thought I would find a big monument to this guy. A big something, because he's a signer of the Declaration, but I had to look for him. Finally, I found a little small plaque over in the corner. And, had him on it. That was it. But that's what I was doing out there. I was walking around in the cemetery looking around. But I love cemeteries because they are like history books. They tell a lot of history, battles, and hardships that people go through, and stuff like that. So they're very interesting in that respect. So I'm looking around, and it's a fall day, and it's late in the day, but I'd say it's around like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's kind of a cloudy day, kind of dark, but not real dark, But and it wasn't cold; it was very mild. Because I remember the leaves were changing, and falling. And anyway, I'm looking around just looking around some of the tombstones. I hear a voice behind me, and it's a woman. She says, "Do you like cemeteries?" And I turn around, and it's this young girl, and she's about probably, I'm gonna say, I put her in maybe mid-20s, okay, something like that. And she is very pale looking, and she has on sort of old and new clothes. Now, let me explain that. She had on like a corset, like the women would wear years and years ago, kind of like a corset-like thing on top, like a camisole, whatever you call it, like that. And then she had on sort of a new-looking kind of skirt, and it wasn't more modern looking in that respect. She was very pretty. She had kind of long brown hair, and kind of pale though. She was kind of pale. I kind of noticed that off. And she put out her hand, and I shook it. And honest to gosh, it was like shaking hands with a dead person.
Oh.
And like I said, this was not a cold day. It was rather warm. There's no reason why. And I thought I always like to give people benefit of the doubt on some of this stuff, And when that happened, I thought, well, maybe she's got, some kind of blood circulation problem or something going on, that she's so cold, chilly. And I told her, I said, yeah, I love cemeteries. She said, oh, I do too. She said, I spend my time in them. Matter of fact, I live here.
Oh.
Which I thought was a very strange statement. All that. I said, oh, really? I thought kind of she meant like, I live here because I spend so much time here kind of thing, But on further reflection later on, I could get a different meaning for that. But anyway, that's what she said. And I said, oh, you interested in cemeteries too? She said, oh, yeah. Something about it, something. I forget now exactly what was said. But she said, I love them because, I'm buried here.
Oh.
And I said, oh, really? Yeah. I'm thinking, I'm dealing with some kind of somebody that's a little bit off here, And I'm saying, oh, really? She said, yeah, I'm a vampire. And I said, oh, you are a member of one of those vampire, societies, and because every big city's got them, And she said, oh, no, I'm the real thing. I'm a real vampire. I'm 280 something years old or something like that. And I'm beginning to say maybe I should kind of distance myself from this person. Okay.
Yeah.
Really weird here with this thing. And here's the thing I couldn't pick up on. When you usually stand that close to somebody, you can feel body heat off of them.
Right.
You can feel their space. I couldn't pick that up at all. There was nothing there. And I'm getting kind of a weird, freaky kind of feeling here off of this. Okay. And first of all, my first thought, and I remember thinking this, she's kind of loony in the head, maybe she's on drugs or something. She's one of those goth girls that's gone overboard or something. What's going on with this, because she didn't look goth, but she kind of had a dark look about her in a way, because her clothes were dark, you know what I'm saying? But she wasn't really what I'd say full-blown goth. She didn't have black lipstick on and all this stuff, But there was something really strange about her. And the weird thing, and on reflection later on, and I've gotten very sensitive over the years having to deal with all of this stuff, I was picking up on the fact that there just was not a feeling of life here. Like you're not in the presence of a real living person, kind of thing. So,
well, you don't want her to start licking her lips, Dennise. That's a good one.
Well, I've had people ask me that over the years, man. They said, do you think she was ready to attack you? That she was going to make a victim out of you? I didn't really pick that up because we were out in the open in public, And there were some other people walking around. This is a very historic cemetery, okay? It's downtown. And there were a lot of people, tourists and stuff walking around. I don't think it was a matter. She just wanted, I think, to interact with me. Why she picked me, I don't know. Out of everybody else around there. But I guess because I was alone. I didn't have little kids with me or anything like that. I was by myself. But anyway, so when I said that, she said, I'm the real thing. And I said, well, wait a minute now. I said, if you're really a vampire, what are you doing out in daytime? That's the first thing. She said, we can come out. We can walk in the day when we want to, but we just don't like to come out on a very sunny day. And she said, the day was perfect. And I'm going, oh, yeah, well, that's interesting. So I start kind of thinking, well, maybe I should distance myself from this person, okay? And she had told me her name, and I can't really remember the name now. It was something. It was two names together, sort of like Beth Ann or Bethany or something like that. And she told me her first name. I didn't remember her last name. She told me her whole name. And I think the last name was like Cranston or something like that. It was a very interesting name. But she had told me her name, and she said something about Charleston changing over all the years and all this. And I thought, yeah, it sure has changed since you've been if you're as old as you say you are, you've definitely seen a lot of changes, So I started thinking, well, maybe it's time for me to kind of wander off now, and get away from this lady. And so I kind of looked down for just a moment. And I look up, and she is nowhere. She's gone just that quick. And believe me, I'm telling the truth, you could look through this whole cemetery that quick, and there was nowhere for her to go. And I said, what's going on here? Because I started looking for her. I thought she get down behind a big tombstone or something, and I'm looking behind all them. She is completely gone. Oh. And like I say, there was no way she could have got out of my eyesight that quick. So I'm sitting there looking, and here's the capper on this, okay? And here's the weird thing. I'm standing there looking, and something catches my eye in the trees. There's big trees around the cemetery. And going through the trees and on out of sight, the biggest bat I have ever seen in my life. I mean, bats usually only, this was like a hawk-sized bat.
Wow.
Going through the trees. And I'm thinking, God, nobody's ever going to believe this. But here's the last thing part of this story. I went back the next day I came back, hoping I'd see her again. Next day I came back, and I found a tombstone in that cemetery with her name on it.
So she did live there.
Mm-hmm. And it did add up to about like 280 years or something like that.
Wow.
That's tricky. But here's what somebody told me about that. They said, "Oh, well, maybe she already knew that name, and she just told you that name on a tombstone. But how could you fit something so perfectly in the years? You know, that was the years that were on the tombstone was about what her age would have been when she died, and it was like 280 some odd years before then. How would you, I mean, that was very convenient for her to find and use. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's too many coincidences to be coincidental. And
an old graveyard. It draws probably a lot of tourists.
but I believe without a doubt, she was the real thing in that respect. Looking back over, I didn't think so then. I thought she was just somebody flaky. But looking back over the different clues that presented themselves, and like I say, sometimes you get blindsided by these things, But looking back over that whole thing, I said, jury's still out. It could have been that, but to me, it's like a preponderance of the evidence is kind of important to that being an authentic vampire.
Well, the whole disappearing in the blink of an eye. What was that, Tommy?
That's like a profound experience. I mean, like, my house is haunted. It's an old farmhouse that is on the railroad moved down and relocated. And there's a little girl lives here. Little ghost. She got a little ghost dog. They like to play pranks and stuff. Wow. I've had multiple friends have her go home with them, and for a week or two at a time, sometimes longer. But I mean, I've used to be able to, when you're in the bathroom at the sink, you'd be able to see out of your peripheral vision. And but I've also been in the graveyard and I saw somebody walk over the hill, and when I went to see who they were, because it was kind of weird circumstance, and there wasn't anybody there. And the same thing happened on the property where we had our shop that was built in the 1820s. It was like a trading post. It was a hospital during the Civil War. There was a man in a white shirt was walking down over the hill, and I was on one of those Kawasaki mules and tore off down through there. There wasn't anybody there. Also found some human remains on the property.
Well, I think a lot of times, a lot of this stuff is residual. It's like looking back 2 times. Sometimes you're in the right moment, the right place, you will see something. But like with that other thing I was talking about earlier, that interaction is there, and you got something else different, on your hands. Sure. Yeah, and it's an interesting thing that I've heard a lot of stories about people when they die, especially young people. Their dogs die with them, and they continue on with them in the afterlife. That's interesting too. That even the pets, anything. I'm gonna tell you something, and I had somebody ask me this the other day. What is it, of all the years that I've investigated and looked into these things? What is the one thing that I took away from it all? And that is this: that even love transcends death.
Yeah,
it never dies in that respect, and I think without a doubt, things that can love you, whether they be animals or people, can be bound to you even after death in that respect. And I have had a lot of cases where people have died with unfinished business. I had one case where there was a farmer. This reminded me of that when you were telling that story, that he was killed in a tractor accident in his field. Tractor fell over on him, and they found him dead when he was trying to get out from under that tractor. He was trying to get back home. That was his last moments. And his grandchildren had actually seen him out in this field walking back toward their house. And they asked their grandmother about that, and they never knew about their grandfather. They didn't know anything about their grandfather. But one of the children said, that's the man in the field, and pointed at a picture in the house that the grandmother had. And she said, oh, my God, that's your grandfather. He died out in that field. Is he trying to come back home? He keeps trying to come back and come back. So I actually went out in that field and did what's called a soul rescue, where I went back out in that field that night and spoke to him and told him, it's okay. You don't have to worry about coming back home now. You need to go on to where you need to go. You need to go to the light. You don't need to stay here. There's nothing to hold you here. Everybody's okay. You're okay, and you need to go on where you need to go. That's where you talk to these, what you think may be earthbound spirits. And they're held back by something like unfinished business or something they won't tell somebody or something that they did or whatever the situation. One of the most tragic ones I ever ran into was a 6-year-old child that was killed by an automobile. And they kept seeing this child coming across the road from where that happened. And his mother and father moved away from this house. So that's why I told him, I said, it's okay. Everything has changed now. You have a new existence. You have a new place to go to. You need to go to the light. Your mother and father, they're gone. This was many, many years later, after that. I said, they've gone to the light and they're waiting on you. You need to find that light. You need to go to it and find peace. And so that's what you try to do to these earthbound type spirits if they are caught in a situation like that.
She don't want to go.
Yeah. Sometimes they don't want to go.
She's waiting for her mom. Then she doesn't understand that.
Yeah. That's something that bounds them to this place. And you need to try to break their bounds for them. It's almost like a spiritual tie for them or something. And once you break those and send them to the light, that's where they'll find that peace that they need. It's a beautiful thing to do. And it is a very heartfelt thing to do if you can actually help people do that,
Yep.
Yeah, Robin wants to know if you know about reincarnation back into the same family. Is this common? You may look like, speak like, and act like that person that has passed.
Soul groups.
There are very few indicators that happens to the same family. Although it can, I'm sure there's nothing off the table on that, But it's not that common of a thing. In other words, it does not happen. But I think we can also kind of pass down memories, the echoes of time, I like to call them, from maybe different timelines, even,
Yeah.
in that respect. Yeah. I believe that can happen sometimes. Sometimes, though, we've got to be very careful because demonic entities can implant false memories in us if we're not careful. And we have to be very, very vigilant about that because it happens a lot. I've told a lot of investigators, and a lot of people get mad at me for this, but I just say it anyway. Okay, it never stopped me. But a lot of them get mad at me. Say, "Oh no, it's not all demons." Well, most of the time, that's what it is. You're dealing with demonic spirits, not human spirits. I think it's very rare that you run into human spirits. Okay, but I'm gonna tell you why in a moment. But most of the time, these are demonic spirits, and they're masquerading as deceased people to fool you, to deceive you, and to believe in something that's not true. To lead you away from the truth that they don't want you to find, whatever that may be. But an interesting thing I have found out over the years that people who die possessed by demonic forces, even death sometimes will not free them from that. These are very malevolent human spirits that are left behind. They're almost like demons themselves. And I'm going to tell you a story about one that's connected with a vampire type of thing. I had a young lady come to me several years ago, and she told me this story. She said, my mother and I never got along. We've always been at loggerheads with each other. We've never got along. And she said, my mother was a vicious woman, very controlling, very narcissistic. She was just bad all the way around. She said she was just downright almost evil. So that was my mother, and I loved her, but that's what she was, you know. And said that they never got along, but her mother I think got cancer, and she was dying with it. And they kind of made amends a little bit, not a whole lot, but they at least began to talk a little bit. And said that her mother's dying wish that she would be buried in her wedding dress. Now, this was not a real fancy with a veil kind of wedding dress. It was sort of like one from the 50s, I guess, or something like that. But it was more like a gown, really, you know, in that respect. A white gown, white satin gown. Anyway, she wanted to be buried in that. And so her daughter had that, you know, fulfill that wish for her. And she said, Dr. Carroll, for the last few nights, I buried my mother like 2 weeks ago. And for the last few nights, night after night, my mother keeps coming back in my dreams. And said, and she brushes my hair and tries to kiss my neck. And she said, but my mother there's a feeling of pure evil here that I'm taking, you know, picking up off of this. Mm-hmm. And said, it's really bothering me. And it's the same dream every night. And she's in that white dress. Okay. And she said, the last time I had this dream, I saw like a blood stain on the dress, you know. Not a big one, you know, just a little, like a drop of blood or something on that. Well, when I heard that, that was the bells went off, you know. I said, oh, that sounds very vampiric, like, you know. And there is an old folk tale that the evil people who die, can come back as vampires. Okay. And here's the clincher on this. She said, ever since this dream has started a couple of weeks ago, said, I am just wake up drained every morning. Said, I can hardly make it through the day till bedtime the next day, you know. She said, my energy level is very, very low, and it's dropping day after day, more and more. She said, I don't feel good. I feel sick. She said, I was a very healthy person before my mother died, and now I'm completely different. And when I heard that, that was the icing on the cake for me, you know. And I said, well, tell me about, you know, your mother's burial. And that's when she told me about the dress, and said she's buried in a vault. She's buried in a mausoleum, and she told me where it was at. I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I said, I'm going to stake this, no pun intended. I'm going to stake this cemetery out, okay? And I'm going to see what happens. And so I spent 7 long, dark nights in this cemetery watching this mausoleum, okay? But nothing ever happened off the bat. I did see something white one night, walking among the tombstones. It turned out to be a big white dog. I've often wondered about that. Could you come back looking like a dog if you wanted to? Okay. Because vampires are supposed to be shapeshifters. You know, you never know. Yeah. But anyway, it was very strange that would happen. But nothing ever happened on that. So I went back and told the girl, you know, I said, I didn't see you. I don't think your mother's walking far as I can tell. But she said, I'm still having a dream. I said, well, let me go back, and there's one thing I will do for you. And I didn't tell her what I was going to do. But I went back to the mausoleum, which is the exact place where her mother was buried on the shelf. And I had some blessed chalk. And I marked a cross on it. And I anointed it with oil and holy water and all that stuff. And I said I called the lady's name. I think her name was Alita or something. And I said, look, you need to rest. You need to go and find peace. You need to rest. You need not to walk again. And you need to leave your daughter alone. Your daughter doesn't want anything more to do with you. You are now a memory. Do not return. I said all this thing. So I heard from the lady about a week later after I did this, and she said, that day you left, that day I left, I went straight to the cemetery. She said, that day you left, that night, I have never had that dream again. She said, I'm feeling better, my energy's returned and everything. And I said, well, that's what I want to hear. Yeah.
There you go.
But that definitely was a spiritual type vampire. And you run into spiritual vampires. They are some of the most insidious of vampires that you can encounter because they will drain the life. They don't suck your blood like, the vampires in Hollywood movies. These drain the very life essence out of your body.
Narcissist.
Out of your soul. Yeah.
What was that, Tommy?
It sounds like narcissists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
experienced that.
The
And it does drain your life force.
Yeah. I've known people that do that. Suck the life out of you.
That's
you
it.
can run into there are what we call energy vampires. Okay.
Yeah.
These people, you ever met somebody like that? They just drain all the energy out of you. When they leave the room, you're like, oh, God, I'm glad they're gone. You run into people like that. Here's the thing you need to remember. It's a good idea not to let people like that ever touch you. Don't shake hands with them. Don't let them get in your space because that gives them that opportunity. These people are really, truly energy vampires. That's what they are. And they go around draining people. It gives them more power, but they're using you as a power bank, like a battery.
Yeah,
that's what they're doing. And I know, Brenda, you had this happen. There have been many times in investigations, I put a full battery pack in something, brand new battery, take it out of the pack, put it in there, and walk in, and it would drain immediately. I've had that happen many times. These entities need energy to manifest.
Right. Now, I know that people could probably say this about me too, but I've had those people on the phone, and when I've hung up, I've been, oh my God, I'm wore out now. I have to take a nap. It's like, even through the phone, suck.
Yeah.
It was everything.
They do. They go around feeding off of that energy. And here's the good idea about it. It's not good to hang around people like that because here's the bad thing. I'll tell you all this, okay? You have a certain amount of energy in you. We all do. We are electrical, chemical process going on all the time. We do not ever need to let our energy reserves drop too low, okay? Mm-hmm. And I was telling this to Barbara Hartman the other night. We were talking about she was spiritually attacked by this thing. And said that she was getting dizzy, nauseous, and all this stuff. That happens because these things will drop your blood sugar real quick. Mm-hmm. Because they're draining energy off of you. See? And it will cause your reserves, physical and spiritual, to drop. Kind of like shields on Star Trek. You don't want your shields to go down on your ship because you're vulnerable then, okay? And that's what these things do. When they start draining you like that, you get too low, it can cause you probably some bad heart, cause you some very bad health effects off of that.
Oh, definitely.
When that energy gets too low.
It's like fight or flight. When you're in fight or flight, your body dumps a bunch of cortisol in your blood, which dissolves in connective tissues and painful. And then, as a way to remedy that, neutralizes it with norepinephrine, which is it's adrenaline. And then, if you're in those situations all the time, then can you not hear me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
we can hear
when
you
you're in that situation all the time, or like constantly in fight or flight, that causes PTSD because it damages the amygdala, which regulates emotion and reactions.
Yeah.
So then it doesn't give you the ability to focus, and so it sounds like narcissistic abuse.
the electrical processes in your brain and the chemical processes. If you interfere with those to too much of an extent, you can cause brain damage. In that respect, you can cause a lot of bad problems because the brain is the center of your being. By the way, anyway. And here's another thing, when it comes to certain blood, I'm gonna call it. We don't need to say blood too much tonight. We'll call it the red gravy, okay?
Okay.
When they're after your red gravy, okay,
Yeah.
they're after the adrenaline in that red gravy. The younger and better it is, the more they like it.
The adrenochrome.
That's what calls them to it. This stuff is like a narcotic for them. Okay?
It literally is.
They can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with the blood thing, okay? And I've actually talked to what I call human vampires. They are people that know each other and they drink each other's blood.
And there's some and they usually lie to fill themselves back up. It has this similar kind of reaction to the body.
Well, they don't want to take it from a stranger. See, they take it from people they know. You know what I'm saying? So they all got their little blood club thing going on there. You know what I'm saying?
Blood club.
these are what I call vampire gangs. They're different than the cults. I'm gonna talk about them in a minute. But these guys are just like hanging out together. They're usually goth people. They're hanging out together. They love the vampire lifestyle thing. If you want to call it lifestyle, I call it dead style. But anyway, they love that. And that's what they're all about. But really, they're amateurs, okay? they're just playing around. They're just kids playing with it. And they're not the real deal. The real deal, the real vampire cults. These guys will unalive you if you find out who they are. They're sort of like the KKK used to be, years ago. They wore the hoods. Why did they wear the hoods? Because they didn't want anybody to know who they were. And if you found out, they would unalive you real quick, okay? Because they hold their secrets.
Secret society.
They still go through these cults.
Oh, yeah.
Satanic cults are the same way. The satanic cults are that way. They will kill you immediately if you breach their protocol, okay? They'll get rid of you. And I have actually been in woods and forests. And, I've warned people about this. You ever walk up on something like this, get away from it immediately. But I have walked up on ritual sites where they do this stuff, okay? And blood sacrifices and all that stuff. You do not want to hang around that area because they are watching that area or they've put something there. Remember I said something there. To guard that area, okay? Trust me, they can put guardian demons in places, okay? To watch over their houses, to watch over their wherever they live or their ritual sites. These things can be guarded by guardian demons. And I've run into them. That was the first. I'm going to tell you what. I ran into a guardian demon one night on a staircase in a building. And a warlock had left this thing behind. Okay, a dark warlock. And this thing actually physically attacked me. I could feel it. I even pushed back on it. I mean, I grabbed it and I could feel it. I couldn't see it. It was real freaky. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. Okay. I felt its claws in my back. Later on, I had claw marks on my back from this. This thing tried to forcibly push me down the 7 steps and kill me. It would have killed me if it had done that. I wouldn't be here right now. But luckily, I didn't, I was on a landing and not on the stairs itself. See what I'm saying? So I kept my balance. But I had to pull this thing. I pulled it off of me.
Yeah.
I would have if it had been a physical person. Okay. I felt it like that. That was freaky. I've never had that happen before. Matter of fact, I got in a slight argument with a witch the other day. When I mentioned dark witch, she comes back and says, "Oh, there's no such thing as a dark witch." I said, "Lady, witches are people. There are good and bad people, right? Okay. You got to look at it that way. That's the way it goes. And some of these guys know how to leave these things behind. They're like booby traps, spiritual booby traps. You never know what you're going to walk into sometimes. And I heard a witch say this one time. She said that her coven, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Said our coven had an exercise where we would cast spells on little children. She was a school teacher, okay? And she said I was casting spells on these little kids. Okay, not bad, real bad stuff, but just enough to kind of screw with them, mess them up a little bit. That was just like a hobby for them. Okay, if you want to call it that. She ought to put together model cars or something and leave that stuff alone. But anyway, she said I was casting spells on, and I could tell when one little child had praying parents. The spells would bounce off of them, like they were waterproof. So I could tell that, and now she come out of that, and she's now a good Christian. But she was telling the story about when she would do these things. But that's what they do. Okay, witches are gonna cast spells, whether they're good or bad, depends on the witch, what their intention is. But you gotta remember something. When you talk about skinwalkers, when you talk about werewolves, whatever the situation, those are witches. They're just using supernatural power to turn into a shapeshift, whatever it is, whichever way they want to go. That's what makes them. And they also, though, these people, in order to get their power, they go into league with demons. They make agreements. They sign contracts. They make blood contracts or dark contracts to get the things they want, whether it be power, prestige, celebrity, whatever the situation. That's the trade-off for them. But they have to do horrific and very bad things to get this power. They have to commit murder and cannibalism on a daily basis to obtain the hierarchy of the power that they want. This is not a fun game. This is not a game of dabblers. When you get into the real hardcore, real deal stuff, you're talking about. And believe me, I'm law enforcement. I'm retired law enforcement. I have seen ritual murders. We were sent to classes about this. Okay, we had to learn about these things. This stuff is real, and it goes on a constant basis in our world.
You mind describing?
And it's very dangerous.
What, Tommy?
Because if you screw around with it, they can get rid of you very quickly.
You mind describing the ritual murder thing, the sacrifice, or that you guys studied when you were in law enforcement? Like, how did they present that to you guys as law enforcement?
Well, we had to learn exactly what their rituals were and why they did the rituals. What was the psychological stuff behind this? What was the meaning, and what some of these symbols that they use mean? They have their own secret language with these symbols, by the way. They mark buildings and houses and trees and stuff with these symbols. They mean something. Yeah. Can you give an
example?
It's like a code.
Can you give an example of one of the ceremonies, the rituals you're talking about, like specifically, or that they taught you that you had to learn what they are, and can you describe it?
Well, many years ago, you do stupid things as a kid, Many years ago, in my younger days, I actually attended a black mass. I had a friend, a guy I know. He kind of sneaked me in. I wasn't supposed to be there. They would have probably got rid of me if they'd have caught me. Okay. And I actually watched what they did. I won't get into all that, but it is a blasphemous sort of counterfeit of Catholic rituals. Okay,
the actual ritual, or the ones that they taught you about when you're law enforcement, what they trained you on. Like you said you had to learn about the different rituals and stuff, and what they mean, the meaning behind them stuff. Beyond the symbol.
You got different sects. You got the voodoo sects. You have witchcraft sects. You have satanic. You have vampire cults. The list goes on and on. They're like gangs in some ways.
I think I know what you mean, Tommy. What you mean is like certain things to look for. Like if you walk up to a body and you see that they're cut open and the only thing that's missing is its liver.
It's
you
kind of
know,
obvious in some
or,
ways.
so they show you certain things. Yeah, it is kind of obvious. I
Well, I
mean,
mean, I've just,
It is, it's pretty obvious because they will cut symbols in the body,
yeah.
usually on the chest.
like,
Um,
you
the
described a bunch of
symbols,
different rituals. Can you give an example of which one of those sects there would be that would be associated with, or if it's all of them? Is this the same symbols, or is there is there like does each one have their own like symbolism, like language,
Yes.
or is it like universal?
yeah. Well, there's different symbols that are used in different sects. There are different voodoo type symbols.
Can you give some examples?
Usually, a lot of that is carried out with dead chickens, chicken claws.
Uh-huh.
A lot of stuff like that is put feather fetishes on the body. There'll be feathers tied together with a chicken claw, stuff like that. They will hang it around the neck of the body. That would be
Like a real,
voodoo. Okay. Santeria, they
sounds like
use would be something like a goat that is decapitated. And the list goes on and on. I mean, they just different things that they do in different aspects of this. But
what
you
kind of
can
black
tell
what,
when it's amateurs and when it's hardcore.
which type of black mass did you attend when your buddy snuck in? Was that like was that voodoo or Santeria, or what was it?
So,
Well, do you know about Black Mass? The Black Mass thing itself. Oh, the Black Mass.
Well, I mean, what associated with that?
Okay, the Black Mass is associated with regular witchcraft. Well, not witchcraft, actually, satanic worship. Matter of fact, let me say this quite quick about witchcraft. Witchcraft is not a belief system; it is a profession. Okay, the belief system is pagan or Wiccan, Wicca as they call it. It has different things that they do with it. You will find bodies placed north to south, east to west. The body is spread out perpendicular to the compass points. Okay, you'll find stuff like that with them. With the Black Mass, it's the Eucharist thing, but it's only, like I say, a corruption of that. Instead of drinking wine and communion wine, they are drinking blood, or usually probably body fluids of some sort. They'll be drinking that, and they will be, instead of consuming bread, they will be consuming flesh, real human flesh. Okay. Also, here's another thing about ritual murders and all that. You can find the bodies and certain things. Certain body parts will be missing or taken out.
For example,
Those are that's a telltale sign that you're dealing with a ritual type murder type thing. Let me say one thing right quick about demonic murder. Demons usually do not murder people. They get people to kill themselves most of the time. That's the way they operate. They get you to do yourself in. But whenever the rare occasion happens that a demon does kill someone, you will find the body with the head turned completely around, looking over the back, and broken that way.
Other than
I
Nashville,
have had
there was a murder down on Second Avenue, and somebody taking a sword and cut the head off the person, and they cut the person's dog's head off too, and they swapped the heads.
That is, yeah, they will take especially if it's like a goat, they will decapitate the goat and place the head because the goat symbolizes Satan.
right.
And they venerate that. Okay, that's part of the ceremony. The Baphomet, that's what it is. It's called the Baphomet. That venerates that. That's the way that Black Mass I was sneaking in on, and I'm sitting there watching all this stuff, and I'm thinking, what the heck am I doing here? If they find me, they're gonna kill me. That's gonna be the end of it. I'm getting out of here before they start doing the sacrifice. Because I had a big bad feeling they were going to do some human stuff here.
How old were you when you did that?
But they did decapitate the goat to venerate its head, before I left. I saw that.
How old were you when you did this? Like, what age?
Well, they oh, you talking about cutting? Oh, they used a sword.
No, how old were you when this occurred?
Oh, how old were I when it happened? Oh God, I was about I was in my early 20s, I guess, something like that.
And what was it that inspired you to want to go?
Well, no, I had been, I had been interested in demonology a long time before that. Actually, I had my first experience in demonology or demons and all that stuff when I was about 14 years old at a church service. I actually saw they were praying for a man who was demon possessed, and the minister told everybody, said, "Bow your heads and pray." Well, I didn't. I watched. And while I was watching, I saw 3 balls of light come out of this man, but they weren't bright light, sort of dirty light. That's the only way I can describe it.
Mhm.
And they were like soccer ball sized lights. And 1, 2, 3 of these things came out of this man and went through the wall. Well, of course, I'm sitting there like, oh, what the heck is that? You know?
Where did his body come out? Did it come out his head, out his chest?
Oh, what parts of the body did it come out, Dennis?
Well, it kind of comes out of his chest, like
Mm.
from where I could see. I couldn't see it really terribly good. I could see the lights coming out of him. I saw that, but it looked like it came out of his chest or right around the throat, like.
Was he in front of you? Was he in front of you? Like this was at church, right? So I'm assuming pews.
Mm-hmm. I was probably maybe 10, 12 pews back from this. I can see it pretty good. I mean, and I'm just like, it was jaw-dropping moment. I'm going like, oh, did I see that? And for a while after that, I said, no, I didn't see that. I tried to lie to myself, but I couldn't believe it because I couldn't, the evidence of your eyes.
Sure.
Being human, that's the number one thing it does it for you when you see it yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no doubt.
Experience it.
I understand. I've had some weird ones myself, and it's when you tell people about it, a lot of times they look like you're nuts. So I mean, I'm used to that. Yeah, that's crazy. So he was in front of you like 10 rows up, and were there people around him? Was there an angle? Was it kind of off to like across the aisle to where you could see like somewhat of a profile, or were you like directly behind him? And did his body like kind of convulse or something like that when it came out of him, or could you tell? Like, did he have a physical like action or like movement to it?
Well, people will do different ways. I have experienced
that guy that you witnessed.
Many exorcisms since that time. I have been in on several exorcisms, and these things take different forms, different shapes. They can do different things.
I think he was talking about. I think he was talking about that guy, Dennis.
Yeah, I was talking about that one specific guy that you saw the 3 balls of light leave from in church. I mean, that's incredible, and like
well, he was freed from those demons.
I'm just saying,
what the whole story was and what was going on up there is that he was the piano player. He was the piano player of the church. Okay. And what happened that day, and I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention until, all this stuff started happening. But he was up there, they said, right before service, banging on this piano. And just making all kind of faces and grunting kind of sounds. He was just like an animal, And he was banging on this piano. And that's when they got him down. Got him off the piano and laid him on the floor. And that's when they began to pray for him. Mm-hmm. And that's when I saw what happened, right after that. With that, he was freed from the spirits. He got up and played the piano later on after that. Perfectly fine.
They moved him off the piano and put him down and got the spirits out. Or I thought you said he was 8 or 10 rows in front of you in the pew. If I'm asking, was back to you? Was he part of? Was he like in the parishioners section? Or was it
Yeah, I was
back. Were you directly behind him, or was he off to where you could see him kind of at an angle? And did his
But
body?
when they laid him down, I could see him pretty good.
Oh, he was on the ground.
Yeah.
So did they take him from the pews and lay him down, or did you take him off the piano?
Yeah, the piano was up on sort of up at the front of the church, up on a dais, like, you know.
Okay, so
and that's when you start doing it. But like I said, at that time, I wasn't really paying a lot of attention.
Yeah,
banging on it, you know. And that's when somebody said something, and that's when I looked up, and that's when they got him down and laid him on the floor, and he was like jerking. He was like doing.
He was making. What was he?
I didn't get a chance to see his face. I didn't get a chance to really get a good look at his face, but. Like I said, I have attended many exorcisms after that, where I've seen people
banging on the piano. He was making all kinds of faces. So, like, I was just wondering, like,
well, that's what they said. They said he was and grunting and making faces, but you know, I heard him banging on the piano. I mean, I heard him. I didn't see that, but that's what they said afterwards that he was doing.
Is that just the other, like the adults that were there that took him down, or like the pastor say something about it, or?
Yeah, that's what some of the people. I might have been in the choir behind him or something. I'm not sure. There was a choir there that day. They came out and took him, and they got him and took him down to the altar, and that's where they kind of laid him down. He started praying for him there, and that's where I saw it from.
Was he trying to get away from him? Was he thrashing or anything? Did he go passively?
I think
because he was banging on the piano. Was he having like a seizure or something, or? Was it like intentional?
It wasn't a seizure and like that. I mean, it was because he was like perfectly fine, and but he came in. Here's what they told me later. And like I said, I wasn't, you know, I didn't see a lot of this happen. But here's what I heard about this later: that he came in, that he was the piano player, and he came in, and they said he didn't act like himself, and he was like, you know, he threw back the. You know how the piano has the covering over the keys, you know, he threw that back, and he was just like, he was real mad, you know, and he wasn't like he didn't have any history of seizures or anything like that I found that out later, but he was just like, he was not himself, so he had somehow or another got under possession. I don't know what his story was. I didn't know the guy very well.
Was the guy married?
No, I saw what happened that day, and when I saw those spirits or whatever, it'll come out of him. That's kind of what lit a fire under me to understand what it was I was seeing.
And how old were you?
Exactly how I did.
About how old were you when that happened? I'm just trying to.
Well, how old? I was about 14 years old. 14, 15.
That's a critical age for
Yeah.
forming. Yeah.
I've always been interested. I've always been interested in the supernatural, the paranormal, all that stuff. I loved ghost stories as a kid and all that stuff. But when you see something like that actually happen, something of a supernatural nature, and this was very supernatural, it changes your whole perspective on things, you know. Here's what I've said about that, and that's what happened to me the day I actually saw Bigfoot. I mean, I saw him close enough to almost touch the sky. Okay. Here's the thing that will come back when you see something like that, or the spirits or something like that. One question will always haunt you: if this is real, what else is out there?
Right? Yeah.
And I went on a journey to find out what else was out there.
Right? Hey guys, we're gonna go ahead and take that 5-minute break.
Thank you, Deb.
I have to run to the other side of the house. Well, I'm not running anywhere.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and take a 5-minute break. Everybody else, you know the drill. Hang out, and we will be right back. back. Uh-oh. Tommy's head disappeared. Oh my goodness. So the vampires that walks amongst us that have been here for many, many years, I still think Cher's one. I don't doubt it at all. I think that Cher is a living, walking, breathing vampire.
Well, I think there are, we've talked about this before. There are certain people in Hollywood, I think, who have made dark contracts for some of the stuff that they do. And it allows them to have longer lifestyles than normal people would. I think it increases them in that respect. They definitely get a lot of money out of it, and prestige and celebrity and all that other stuff. It's all a game of power. And there are vampire cults that operate. One of their biggest hubs is definitely New Orleans, but you can find them in every large city: Seattle, Washington, D.C., the list goes on and on. Whatever large city, you will have these vampire cults. Now, I'm not talking about the societies. That's a different thing altogether. Like I said, they're mostly amateurs. They're not the real hardcore stuff. The hardcore stuff, these guys in the vampire cults are sort of like a vampire mafia. Okay, in that respect. You don't cross these guys. You don't mess in their territory. They'll come after you and you'll disappear in a hurry. They have a certain power and prestige, and they got it in dark ways. There's not a big difference between vampire cults and satanic cults in the way that they operate. And I think the way they are connected to demonic power. That's what fuels this machine, this dark machine. And that's the demonic power that they hook into. That's how they get the ability to shapeshift. That's how they get their power, their control over all things. They want to control us, for that very fact. They want control over everything. Let me say this about magic, okay? And magic does really exist, but it comes in several different forms, okay? But magic, if you practice magic, you are basically trying to manipulate and change reality to the way you want it to be. That's what you're doing. When you cast a spell, hex, whatever it is, you're trying to change reality into the way you want it to be. You're trying to get complete control over things, but you're doing it in usually a very dark and bad way that you go about it. And that's what these people are doing, whether in the vampire cults or either in the satanic cults. They are out to do this. And they do it in very horrific ways in many ways. But like I said, they are very secretive. They operate in secrecy. But they are behind the scenes of a whole lot of things in this world that would blow your mind to know what they truly are involved in. And this includes your politicians, your media people, your movie stars, your sports, your churches. There's certain pastors that are involved in this, okay?
Oh,
they have these so-called mega churches.
Yep.
Some of them are involved in this. The list goes on and on and on and on, okay? And without a doubt, the government is involved in it. Like I said earlier about the CIA thing I was telling you about, where they tried to recruit me. The government is deep into this stuff because they are in bed with the demonic, without a doubt, in my book.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy, Tommy, can't hear you. Are you muted? Nope. Gotta go out and come back in.
A little bit tech stuff going on now. But anyway, that's the bad thing about these guys. They're in everything, everywhere, every aspect of our society, because they are hooked up into the demonic, and the demonic has infiltrated AI. It has infiltrated everything in this world because we are involved in it. They're out there. They work off of human agencies all the time. And there are a lot of people out there, Brenda, that have actually sold their souls for this power.
Yeah.
And they've turned. Here's the thing about it. Let me say this. You got to understand. In all of us, in each one of us, there is a darkness. Okay, there's an inherent darkness in us, and yeah, and every one of us is a murderer, a rapist, a thief, whatever. The list goes on and on. In certain circumstances, we can do that. We're human beings. Okay, that's what we do. We can be very bad to other human beings, definitely. But that darkness in us is sin. That's what is. That's what has infiltrated us. Okay, that's what screwed this whole world up, and nature and everything, including that, not just people.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a darkness, an outside darkness in this world.
Mm-hmm.
It is demonic. That's what it is. Basically, is from the agency of the fallen angels. That's where it comes from. Okay, the Nephilim, whatever name you want to give it. That darkness wants to hook up with the darkness in you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And pull you deep into its darkness to the point where you lose your humanity and your soul. That's the way it works.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get too far into the darkness. You get too far, you can't come back. Okay, that's just the way that goes. You go past the point of no return. I have known people that come out of that darkness, but they were incredibly lucky, and that doesn't happen a whole lot.
I
Very
heard.
rare.
Oh, go ahead, Tommy.
Go ahead, Brenda.
I heard the other night somebody say that how they basically infiltrate us is that all you have to have is one thing, somebody that you don't forgive, and you carry that with you. That's a spiritual opening for them. Some kind of hatred, infidelities, different stuff like that. Everything that we do, that we leave one little tiny spiritual opening for them to crawl in. That's how they do it. Do you is there truth? Do you think there's truth to that?
Oh yeah.
It's very much like opening a door. Okay.
Yeah.
And I tell people this: you need to get rid of your welcome mat. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to invite some things in your house and in your life, and that's what happens to a lot of people. You know, I've actually had people say, everything just goes bad for me. I have the worst luck. I think I'm living under a curse. My girlfriend left me. I lost my house, all this blah, blah, blah. And, they're deep into drugs and alcohol and all this other stuff. And I go, what do you expect out of that? You're putting out negative. You're living negative. You're not going to get positive out of that.
Yeah.
You're only going to get more negative. That's just the way that works. And the Bible says it differently. The Bible says you cast your bread upon the waters and it comes back like sevenfold. Well, what kind? And that's good bread or bad bread, whichever way that goes, And people say, why am these things happening to me? And look at the lifestyle that they're living. What do they expect? You've already opened the door spiritually and let these things into your life. And sometimes people open the door and let the wrong people into their lives.
Yeah, they do.
Or wrong situations into their lives.
Amen.
I have actually had people tell me that the devil has laid traps for them and offer them fame and stuff for certain things. These are traps, like snares that they will leave for you to screw your life up and make your life a living. That's what demons do. That's their job, and they do it very well. They like to get. There are demons of addiction. There are demons of sexual perversion. There are demons of every sin you can think of.
Alcohol.
Demon in charge of. Okay.
They're all alcohol. Alcohol's all named after demons.
Yeah. And
pride. Well, the seven princes of hell are named after the seven deadly sins. Yeah. That's just the way that works. But why do you think they got a demon in charge of them? Because that's their proactive work that they're doing. Okay, that's what they're up to. And they're in charge of a lot of this stuff. But you know what? Here's the bad thing. most of the times we don't even have to have demons to push us into these things. We want to do it our own selves, you know. We are on, but you know, the Bible talks about the world, the flesh, and the devil. Those are the three things we got to watch out for. And we've got to guard the gates. We've got to guard the gates of our souls very closely. And those gates are your mental, physical, and spiritual aspects. Okay. Those are the three ways these things work on you. And if you're okay, just say like if you've got a physical problem and you're not healthy that way, that's the way they'll come after you that way.
Yeah.
Or if you've got a mental problem, they'll come after you that way. Or a spiritual problem, that's the way that they're always looking for the chinks in your armor.
Yeah. They definitely look for the kinks there. It's kind of like gang stalking. They do the same thing. And like you know,
it is a system.
The thing we're talking about, it's weird. It's weird how it can relate to certain like personality types that operate much in the same way as vampires, but on an energy and like level, you know, and the different things that are involved with societies and you know, secret societies and aspects of like government agencies and people, you know, there's definitely a correlation with you know, terms of psychology and certain types of
it's like I told Brenda,
like Rico crimes.
At the beginning of this program, I said you don't never want to join any organization where the retirement is the only way you retire is through the morgue.
Sure.
That's the way that it goes, and people do not realize what they're getting into sometimes when they get into these cults and these covens and all that. They do not understand what the real price is on this. It's not just your soul and your life. It's your very existence that can be, you know, compromised by this.
Sure.
And that's the way these vampire cults work. They are very closed. They're very strict. And I told somebody not long ago, you ever watch the John Wick movies?
No.
You ever watch those? I have.
The vampire cults are just like that, except they're vampire cults. Okay, that's the way they kind of operate. You know, you hear about the high table and all this stuff. That's the Russian mafia. That's the way these guys work. You know, and here's the bad thing about it. These vampire cults and these satanic cults, they're not local. They're worldwide. They've got a network.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Organized crime.
Very well organized. They're better organized than any government or military on this planet. That's the way the rules
in the military. Yeah. We're on the same page.
Here's the thing about it. You can talk about these cults and you can talk about these covens in a personal sort of way, but it gets down to a personal level because these things come after you personally.
Oh, yeah, I know.
After you, they come after your family, they come after your very lifestyle. If you open the door, they will definitely come in. And it's just like we've talked about the black-eyed kids and the men in black, which I think are demons, basically, probably what they really are. All these things keep wanting to be invited in. You ever noticed that? They want to be invited in. Vampires have to be invited in. You know why? Because they recognize authority. And you, as the owner, have authority over that place. Okay? They recognize that. That's why they ask you to come in.
Yes.
But also we got to remember this. God has given us authority over them.
Yes.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Our God is bigger than theirs.
The hedge of protection.
Absolutely. And we have been given that authority, and we need to exercise that authority. We don't. It's just like, you know, we've all dealt with bullies in our lifetime. We've all run into bullies, you know. You give them an inch, they'll take the whole ruler from you, okay? That's just the way they operate. But once you stand up to them
Mhm.
and take authority of the situation, what usually happens? They
They
leave you
run.
alone.
Yeah.
You take the power away from them. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's how
Because
these things work.
yeah, I mean, if they
That's-
know that they can get you and you're going to bend to what they want to project on you, well, then yeah, they're gonna step closer and closer. And like you said, Dennis, you give them a little bit of an inch, and they'll take the whole ruler. But if you put your foot down and you say, no, no, no,
Even.
my God, my faith is bigger than you are. I'm bigger than you are. And then they will hightail it and leave you be. So move on to
Very
somebody else they think they can get to.
It's very true. And we've got to remember that with authority comes responsibility, though.
Sure.
We have to be very responsible with how we dictate that authority. You don't just randomly use it for no reason, in all the wrong ways.
Yeah, no,
It goes down to what your intention is, whether it's good or bad, and that's what kind of an outcome you're going to have in that respect, if it's good or bad. But we got to remember when dealing with spiritual matters like this, that prayer is a very powerful weapon against these things. It really does move mountains, even spiritual mountains, without a doubt. I have seen it take place. I've seen it done, and I've told that to people over the years. I know there's a God, without a doubt in mind. There's no doubt at all in my mind, because I have seen Him work.
Yep.
I have seen Him do things that were impossible. As Jesus said in the Bible, with God, all things are possible. That's a very good statement that you can take to the bank, and that does work that way. And that is where the power of prayer and all that comes into play in spiritual battle against these dark forces. That's what the Bible says. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and spiritual wickedness in high places. What's that interesting part? High places. That's who you vote for.
Could that be government?
There you go. That's where they're at.
Could that be as high as our government? Because I don't think he was talking about window washers on big buildings. I do believe it is our government.
I doubt that very much.
Cranberry. Yeah.
But that's where the movers and shakers are. That's where the Hollywood stars are, and the sports figures and the politicians and all that. The movers and shakers in this world. They are the powers that be. Where do you think they get their power at?
Oh, they get it from Satan. That's exactly where they get it.
I mean, sometimes, I don't know. I've known lots of folks that were successful athletes and things that were Christians, and they became well known, and I don't think they necessarily made a deal with the devil.
What do you guys think about? I'm gonna switch the wheel just a minute, seeing we're talking about these people. What do you guys think about them all leaving the country?
Well, I don't think that's realistic, because I mean,
I hope a door don't hit them on the way out.
There you go.
We have the ability to have our own thoughts and beliefs, and we can express those things vocally without worrying about being imprisoned or kicked out of the country or it becoming a theocracy, which is what you have in like Iran and in the Middle East, the Muslim country.
Well,
which is anytime there's a theocracy, always the most fanatical end of the spectrum that winds up in power and dictating rules for everybody else.
Well, I think honestly that if they want to go, I will help them back.
Oh, I mean that's fair.
Hey, you put your heart in America or get out.
True.
Well, let me say this.
Yeah. I think there's different ways to do that. I think sometimes people put their heart into the country by advocating for things that most people think are innocuous, but actually they could be extremely hazardous to, and they've been lied to, and the laws have been set up in such a way that it protects the people that make money off of doing that, and the person who's just trying to draw attention and inform people that something is toxic and dangerous, or dangerous to their children's health. That's a good thing, and that's being a patriot in my mind, or being an American and exercising the rights to make the world, a safer and better place for all my countrymen, whether I agree with them or not. But
Well,
I'm not really attached to
here's the way people operate. Okay, this is the way you operate when you take control over somebody. You take their voice away from them. Okay, that's the way you operate, and that's what they're seeking to do, is take our voice away from us.
Yeah.
So they will have complete control, and they want to divide us up. They want to turn us against each other and hate each other and have division, because that's the other way you control things,
Yeah.
And it's all about control. That's what it's all about. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And we've got to understand how. And here's another thing. This is what somebody said the other day, and I'm not going to get political on your show tonight, okay? But here's what somebody said the other day to the outgoing administration: burn it down before you leave.
Wow.
That's not good.
Burn what down? Like the White House, the Capitol? It seems like kind of a.
Well, I think it was talking about the country, burn down the whole country.
Well, that would be like a horrible thing, and that's then it would be divided up into a bunch of territories.
It's the hatred. Look, it
well, the thing is that hatred is spread through every state, because it's the divisiveness of wedge politics doesn't do anything for the health of the nation. All it does is it creates a distraction point and the illusion of participation in the citizens, when in reality special interests and super PACs and things that have been legislated and the controls of that ensured the rights of the people and the power that we have through voting actually exists and still has function, has been kind of slowly eroded at by corporations and big business through kickbacks and bribes and lobbying, and wedge politics is kind of one of the big distraction of the political circus. Keeps us divided, and it's gotten more and more divisive since. I remember when I was a kid and watching politics. My dad ran for office here in Virginia, and like there was more. It was more stately. Even when they were pointing out, there weren't attack ads so much. It was just like this person's running on this, and this person's running on this day, or with these goals in mind, And it got more so as a way to divide us as a people, to where we weren't really paying attention to the governance itself once they're there, because that's not really something that people don't have. But before the internet, people didn't have access to read bills and stuff like that. They were getting put into action. And by the time that we did, a lot of that stuff had already been kind of like so far off of the out of the checks and balances, or eroded at the checks and balances that we had to ensure that we all had freedom and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, or the potential for it anyway.
Yeah.
And as we've gotten to the point to where we have access to those stuff, it's like you have a 2,000 page bill that they introduce in the middle of the night and then pass the next day. That has all kinds of stuff that is unrelated, but they'll call it something that sounds like the Patriot Act, which is actually the most unpatriotic thing that they've ever passed. It gives them the power to basically just disregard our civil rights.
Right. Well, that's what that whole hatred, evil part of them, and as much evil that goes on in this country. It's like if it leaves, well, then.
Well, it exists on both sides, though.
Yeah.
That's That's reality.
Well, it's the general air. It's the general feeling in this country.
Somebody's messing with my door lock. I will be right back. You guys talk.
Good, yes.
Jack, there's somebody messing with the door lock.
Get your 45 out.
Already got it.
So go ahead, Dennise. What were we saying?
Well, I was just going to say, it's a feeling in this country. It's a mean-spirited thing going on here. It's not like America used to be. It's not like the country you and I grew up in. Okay, it's completely changed, right. And I think a lot of this is due to demonic activity on high levels in places. Because that's how you attack anything. You go to the higher parts of it. You start up there and you attack it, then it trickles down to the lower parts. You know what I'm saying? And that's how these things work. They've gone to the higher echelons of the government and education, churches, schools, the whole works. They've gone to the higher levels and there's trickling down from that. Look at, you never would have thought that school teachers associations would be so involved in politics like they are now. Everybody's got something to say about that. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's not even in their own stuff. They're into it is a form on a high level of manipulation going on in this country. And it's, I think, coming out of darkness, without a doubt. You know?
Yeah. Lobbying.
Sorry. Crazy drunk neighbor had the wrong door.
Nice.
Don't ask.
Wasn't the MPs this time?
Not on Saturday night, huh?
Okay. I'm like, I opened the door. I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, this ain't my door. Wow.
Well, there you go. We were talking about evil and it comes knocking on your door. Okay?
I know, right? I'm like, oh, great. Now who is it? FBI, CIA, card.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I live around some really nice people.
If he
I have neighbors like that myself. Actually,
if he knocks at your door and leaves a bag that's on fire on your front porch, don't stomp it out.
Oh, they didn't knock. They were trying to put the key in the lock.
I know. I was joking. I was playing off of what.
Oh, leave it there.
Yeah.
Don't step on it.
You got no worries that. That's the way it goes.
I need to hang a sign on the door when I'm doing the show that says on the air.
Yeah. Live broadcast.
Big letters.
But you know what though? It would be my luck that people in this neighborhood would think that a sign saying on air meant like, how high are you and are you selling it? Yeah.
You mean like nitrous?
Yeah.
That's what I said earlier about picking up the welcome mat, you know.
Yeah.
Be careful what you want to invite in, definitely.
I know.
Little signs that say welcome, you know. I started making something that said unwelcome.
No, I don't have any welcome. Nowhere outside my door does it say welcome.
I don't either.
Come in.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, mine says welcome.
Yeah. You don't ever put anything that says welcome on your doorstep because that means that you're welcome.
No, it's not a good idea because some things might take that, generally speaking, as an opportunity to come in. Definitely. That's what I was talking about earlier. We let these things, we invite these things in by our very actions that we do, the things we do, the lifestyles that we lead, our lack of faith in things and stuff. So the list goes on and on and on. So I said, and I've counseled people all over the world about this, okay? And here's what I always tell them. These things, you got to remember, this is a very important rule, okay, when it comes to the demonic and the darkness in this world. It has no power at all unless you give it to it.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to fuel it, okay? You don't want to fuel it. Like I said earlier about that murderer inside all of us, that's the beast that you do not feed.
Right.
You keep it pushed down. You keep it under control. You keep it where it needs to be in its place. Don't feed the beast. Don't give your enemy ammunition.
Yes.
We used to say that in law enforcement a lot. It's bad enough to get shot at. It's worse when you gave them the bullets. That's what you don't want to do. And
were you like a police officer?
we got to be careful, I think, on all levels. And here's another thing I tell people, okay? A lot of these things, especially when they get in your house, they want acknowledgement. Don't give them acknowledgement. Because you're feeding that beast. You're helping them to increase in power. Don't give them acknowledgement, you know. Here's what I've had so many people say, you know, oh, there's something in my house. And it's making a noise every night, and I have to close the door. I have to do this. I said, look, you're playing its game. You're feeding it. You're buying into it. Don't do that. Ignore it as much as possible. Don't give it any power. Don't give it any acknowledgement. That works. That formula really works, folks. I'm not telling you that just for fun. It really does work. I've seen it work. And that's what we've got to understand. We have power and authority over them. We don't need to give them any power or authority in our lives whatsoever.
Yeah, that's true.
Definitely.
I have to keep remembering that when I encounter stuff. Well, like earlier with the chat that was going off for an hour before the show. I for a minute there, until Tommy told me just ignore. Yeah,
it's just
I said some things.
It's make
that's what a lot of these people want, Brenda. They want to pull you into an argument, get something going, get that bad negative thing. That's what they're feeding off of. See, negativity feeds off of negativity. The more you give it, the stronger it becomes. The more it likes that stuff. It's like a kid in a candy shop. Okay, if they eat too much, they're gonna get a bellyache. Definitely in the end.
Right?
But that's what they're doing. They're feeding off of that. So you got to break that cycle. You got to break it.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's
I've had people come up and say, I've had a lot of people over here say, oh, you do this, you believe that. They want to argue about it. And I said, look, I'm not here to debate you, and I'm not here to argue with you about it. Okay. Because I'd be just wasting my time. You know what the Bible says about that? Jesus had a very important saying about that. Do not cast your pearls before swine.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's exactly right. And don't waste your time on that.
Yeah, so just a question. You mentioned being law enforcement several times. Which were you a police officer? Were you in the bureau, or what's your background in that? I'm just curious.
Oh yeah. I was. Well, I've worked with several different law enforcement agencies. As a cop, I was a cop for about I think about 6 years altogether.
Yeah.
Before I had to retire due to some health problems. I didn't want to, but I had to. But I worked with several different agencies. I worked with the county and city police. I even worked at a university one time, which actually had its own police department.
Yeah, most of them do. Yeah. Do you have which state? Which city? Whatever.
I live in South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked for the governor for a time.
Yeah, which governor?
Mm-hmm.
What, South Carolina governor?
Yeah, the governor of South Carolina. Yeah.
Which one was governor then?
As a constable.
Okay.
The constables work directly for the governor.
Mm-hmm. I lived in South for a while. Mm-hmm. I've got like ancestors from the Charleston area. When we were talking about that earlier, like one of them was General Wade Hampton. Yeah, from the Civil War general. He's from Charleston.
Hampton. Yeah.
His father too.
Wade Hampton. Yeah, I know him well. Yeah. Well, I don't know him, but I know of him. Yeah.
He was. I share like a third great grandfather with, or let's see, my great grandfather was his first cousin, and they shared the same name. Yeah, so they had, I guess their grandparents were the same.
Susie has a question, Dennis. Hi, Susie. She said, "What about attachments to dolls?" She said that she believes that they can be some type of a vampire also.
It's an interesting thing about what's her name? I can't think of it. She wrote the interview with the vampire.
Oh,
Anne Rice.
yes.
Anne Rice had some very freaky dolls in her house. They were life-size, very bizarre-looking dolls.
Yes.
I just happened to think about that when you said that. But here's the thing about dolls. Dolls are facsimiles of us, okay? And that's why the demonic likes them so well, because they kind of manipulate us through them. Inanimate objects cannot be possessed. Only living things can be possessed. But inanimate objects can be utilized by certain forces. They can be used. They can be manipulated. And that's where you get the very famous thing with Annabelle, the Annabelle doll, which is a Raggedy Ann doll, actually. It doesn't look anything like the one in the movies, okay? Hollywood always makes things look worse anyway. But dolls have that propensity that they can use these things against us, and they freak us out. A lot of people find them very fearful, and they like that. They like that aspect of it, just like clowns or certain things they can utilize to make you more fearful, because their fear is what? Negativity, and that's what they're feeding off of. That's what they're using. And they love fear because fear is the enemy of faith. But faith is the enemy of fear. There you go. That's the way that works. But that's what they like. Uh-huh. Absolutely. But dolls can be manipulated by the demonic. Mm-hmm.
Oh, woo. You're seriously going to make me. I've been sitting here trying to say this word in my head, and I can't get it out right.
Necromancers.
There you go. What is it? Nick.
Oh, yeah.
I can't even say it.
Can humans become necromancers?
Well, necromancers are sorcerers, witches, or whatever, warlocks, however you want to say it, whatever tag you want to put on it. Necromancers are sort of the darkest of the lot, because they deal with the dead. Many aspects of the dead. That's hence the name necro. Necro means dead. Necromancers. They can supposedly get information from the dead. They can supposedly reanimate corpses. That's where you get demonic reanimation of the dead. Those are vampires, by the way. That's another form of vampire. There are many different types of vampires, but a demonically reanimated dead body can actually have an evil spirit in it. Okay, this is to say, Brenda, if you died and came back as a vampire, you really wouldn't be Brenda in your body. It would be a demonic entity in your body driving on. Necromancers can call these up and control them and use them for certain purposes. I won't get too deep into it. But necromancers are some of the baddest of the bad, because of the way they go between worlds of the living and the dead to do the things that they do, and they're very bad magic, and supposedly in that respect.
Okay, he asked another question about those things. Says he has another question. Can they use the body from a person whose soul went to heaven? Oh, whose soul went to heaven?
That's a theological question there. If your soul has gone to heaven, then you really don't need your body anymore. The body goes back to dust. The body can be manipulated. Sure, the bodies of dead people can be used for certain nefarious purposes. Even if you were a good person at once upon a time, your soul has now vacated your body, so there's no longer that tie in there with it.
It's just a robe.
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of, that fits in with the whole, doesn't that fit in with like the walk-in type thing? How they say that they can walk in and take over your body. So if your soul is not there, then the body's really not yours anymore, right?
That's what I warn people a lot about. astral projection. You have to be very, very, very careful playing around with that, because if you leave your body, for a while, who knows, something might be in residence when you get back. Something might have taken over your body. That's a very dangerous aspect of it. It's a good idea not to leave your body.
I worry about that when I do that when I'm sleeping. And I'm afraid I'm gonna come back in my dog or something.
Well, now you don't have to worry about it if you're sleeping or sort of in a dream state. If it's here's I've had people ask me that if they accidentally leave their body, there's still a tether to it, you might say. Okay, a spiritual tether there. But when you purposely cut that tether and leave the body, then you're leaving it open to some very bad things that might be waiting on you when you get back home. You might not get back in. Think about that. That wouldn't be good either.
Yeah. I astral traveled when I was like 22, just trying to relax. I was at night. I would just had horrible anxiety and just all the time. But at night, it made it difficult to. So I was doing like breathing exercises and visualization to relax, and then it's the first time I had like a true astral travel outside my body, and it wasn't something that I intended to do. And I mean, when I returned, it seemed like it was the same moment that I left, but there was this whole experience that took place outside of the chronological time, where I traveled to like the Akashic record, and didn't do that on purpose either. But that's what the voice said when I asked where I was, and that was like a profound experience that was, for me, it was really positive, but it was unintentional. It just opened up a whole bunch of new questions about
Well, sometimes I think
just existence.
We're given truths that we're given things to see or experience for our own good for a reason. Without a doubt, that sounds like that might have been something along those lines. That you were meant to experience that.
It definitely seemed like it. Yeah. It was something that was outside of my paradigm of understanding of what existed, And I wasn't even familiar with the term Akashic record.
Later in their life.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to you about it. Yeah, at some point when we have an opportunity. But yeah, I too had a bunch of weird things happen throughout my life that are outside of the.
We are the sum of our experiences. That's what we are. We are the sum of things that we've experienced and learned. Sometimes, unfortunately, the hard way. But we learn as we go through life. And I think we're given certain. I think God gives us certain things that happen to us for reasons that make us better people, that make us grow spiritually in that respect. Definitely. I think these things are meant to happen. I think a lot of times we're meant to meet certain people or experience certain situations because they teach us something or we need to know or we need to experience those people or situations,
Oh, definitely. Yeah. There's a shared exchange of information typically.
Well, let's we're starting to run out of time. So before we say our ending prayer, Dennis, do you want to tell everybody where to get your books, about your podcast, and where to contact you?
Okay, well, matter of fact, Sunday night with my good friend Gerald Fountain on Midwest Night Watchers Night Owl Lounge, we will be interviewing Mr. Dacre Stoker, who's the great-great-grandnephew of Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula. We will be interviewing him Sunday night.
Very cool.
Monday night, I will be on the program I have with Gerald also as well, called The Road Less Traveled. Wednesday nights at 9 o'clock. All my shows are 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay. Wednesday night is Hunting the Shadows. And Friday night, I have Paranormal Point of View.
Nice.
I now have a paranormal consultant service. If anyone out there needs to talk to me for whatever reason, or you need to ask me a question, or you need to just, share an experience with me, whatever, I'm available for that. You can contact me on my website, DenniseWCarroll.com, or you can contact me through email, which is DenniseWCarroll@gmail.com. I have a Patreon if you want to support our shadow hunters. The Patreon is Hunting the Shadows podcast at patreon.com. And I can be found on Hunting the Shadows YouTube channel. Please support it. I would appreciate your subscriptions and all that. And come over and check out some of the programs. My books are available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. Just look up Dennise W. Carroll as the author on that.
Awesome.
Okay.
Very cool.
And Tommy, where can we find you?
I'm in my living room most days. But on Facebook at Tommy Edwards, Touchdown Tommy, and then I think Instagram at Touchdown Tommy Edwards. I think that's also my TikTok. Rumble is Dreamcatcher33, and then the YouTube is Tommy Edwards 6072 or 62, yes, 6072, and then there's I can't remember one that's escaping my mind. Oh, you can find me on Beyond the Box podcast, and I've got a upcoming interview tomorrow with Penny Bradley on her podcast. I'd love to come. I need to send you some videos there, Dennis. I got some really strange cryptid stuff from my security cameras, and orbs and all kinds of there's a portal that opens up in one of them. It's wild. I think you appreciate.
Got one that looks like a fairy, and when it stands up, you can see it. It's really weird.
Yeah, the one that goes across the front of the truck.
Look at Tommy. Woo knows what your thing is here. Tommy Edwards. There you go, Woo. Keep him in line.
7062. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. Tomorrow night, guys, we have Abe Sias coming back. I was with him last night on his show for almost 4 hours after we got done on mine. So needless to say, I was still up at 10:30 today.
Wow.
But it was fun. I enjoy going over there and sitting and talking to them. He's got a really good group of people in his chat. Dennis, thank you so much for coming back. It's always a pleasure having you.
It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
And it's worn every day. See that?
Nice. Yes.
Every day. So
you may take us out with a song.
Do what?
You may take us out with a song.
Well, you can if you would like to.
I mean, I think I just to show appreciation that Dennis coming on here and.
Well, let us. Yeah, you can do that. Let us go ahead and say an ending prayer, and then Tommy can go ahead and take us out of here with a song.
Perfect.
All right, Dennis.
Okay, dear Heavenly Father, we ask that you touch and protect everyone tonight who has watched this show, that you touch their lives, their hearts, their minds, and their spirits. We ask that you place a hedge of protection around each and every single one of them, and that you give your angels charge over them to keep them in all their ways. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, and by the blood and name of Jesus Christ, we humbly pray. Amen.
Amen. Tommy, what you got?
Let's see. "27 in Birmingham in the middle of April. Frost on peach trees man don't put no food on the table. Down in the Southlands, things been changing. Up and down another road of this deja vu derangement, and these times keep on changing. Like Bobby Dylan said so many years ago, time keeps on moving like a midnight train. Hear it calling, but to where you never know. Know it's going, but to where you never sure. Distant thoughts and distant dreams echo to and fro. Listen to your spirit song, hear it knocking at your door. Life, it ain't no mystery, it ain't no drama, ain't no game. What you is what you be, and we all, man, be the same. And these times keep on changing. Like Bobby Dylan said so many years ago, time keeps on moving like a midnight train. Hear it calling, but to where you never know. You know it's going, but to where you never sure. Just to sit with me while I feel you are in pain. Show me all your beauty and then stand out in the rain. Searching for a rainbow in the middle of the night. Lost in this lonely world, out of mind and out of sight. And these times keep on changing. Like Bobby Dylan said so many years ago, time keeps on moving like a midnight train. Hear it calling, but to where you never know. You know it's going, but to where you never sure. 27 in Birmingham in the middle of April. Frost on peach trees, man, don't put no food on the table.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
you, Daryl.
We are out of time, so we are going to skedaddle out of here. Thank you again, Dennise, for coming in. I have a show tomorrow night. What time is your show tomorrow night, Dennise? The show you're going on?
Yeah, that'll be Midwest Night Watchers Night Owl Lounge. That'll be, I think, at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Okay, guys, we will see you tomorrow night. Have a good night. And like always, please be kind to one another. Have a good night.
Goodbye for now, from Beyond the Box.
Please join us again for Beyond the Box, Friday and Saturday evenings, from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern. Join us for more intel bombs from our extraordinary guests.
Good night, Putin. Good night, Tucker.